My partner, 39 years old, now ex, was in Las Vegas on a work trip. I found out she stayed overnight in a random man's hotel room in Las Vegas. She claims he was just a nice guy and they were hanging out in his room. He invited her up for drinks. Do men ever assume it is just a hangout? I do not believe a word she says, and I am sure they had sex. Story 1. Even if she went to his room with no intentions, and even if nothing happened, anyone in a committed relationship should respect their partner enough to avoid putting themselves in that situation. Story 2. If she just wanted to have drinks with him and nothing more, she would have suggested meeting at a bar in the lobby. As a woman, I would never accept going to a man's room for drinks unless I was hoping things would get physical. Story 3. Even in a world where they did not have sexual relations, going up to a man's hotel room alone in Las Vegas is a significant red flag regardless. That is simply not something you do based on appearances alone if you have a partner you care about. Story 4. The whole point of going back to your hotel room with someone is to hook up. Period. End of story. Literally everyone on the planet knows this because all of us have genitals, sexual desires, and have probably done this at least once. Also, in Las Vegas, you can drink anywhere you want 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You don't ever need to go back to someone's hotel room to have a drink. She is a bald-faced liar. Story 5. 90% she cheated on you. Even if she did not, it is incredibly inappropriate and suspicious to have done that. There is no way that this is not a deal breaker, at least for me. Story 6. Yeah. I just hung out with a random guy all night. We didn't do anything, so you shouldn't be mad. Your girlfriend has some nerve to say such an unbelievable lie. Story 7. I am a woman. There are a million places to hang out, 24 hours a day, in Las Vegas. If you are staying anywhere between the Strip and the airport, an Uber will take you back there within 10 minutes. Why would there ever be a need to sleep in a stranger's hotel room? Story 8. Who in a committed relationship goes up to another man's room while in Las Vegas thinking it is just to hang out? That does not sound typical to me, but perhaps I am too cynical. Story 9. Not a man, but as a wife, I would never do this because I actually care about my marriage, and it would disrespect my husband deeply, even if nothing happened. However, unless your wife is unaware, she knew why she was there and what he wanted. Story 10. He probably just rented a double queen bedroom. Sitting on separate beds is clearly more comfortable than hotel bar stools. There is a television in the room, so they can watch Christian Ministries reruns while discussing how chaste they both are, without the prying ears of fellow bar patrons. I'm sure he was affectionate with her. Edit to add, brother, you have been posting about this for at least 2 months now. It might be time to move on. You know they were together. You saw her text to her friend about it. It is time to head to Las Vegas and ask someone on a work trip to come up to your room for drinks as well. Story 11. If a man invites a woman alone to his hotel room at night, most people understand the implication. Could it be innocent? Sure. But it is like saying, let's hang out in my bedroom with drinks. Context matters. The bigger issue is not what happened in the room. It is that she made a decision that crossed an obvious line, and she is pretending it is normal. When someone chooses a situation that is questionable and deceives you afterward, it is not just about trust. It is about respect. Story 12. I think I would be more insulted that my ex thought I was stupid enough to believe her lies than by the actual cheating that obviously happened. In fact, I would call her out on it by saying something like, why on earth would you even date someone you thought was so stupid that they would believe you? Have some self-respect. Story 13. Why would she need to go up to his room for drinks when you can get a drink every 10 feet in Las Vegas? Story 14. Even if it was just hanging out, it was not. How would this be okay? Not even a friend, but some random man? Story 15. Here is the thing, you will never know for sure if she did or if she did not. What you do know is he opened the door for the opportunity for that to happen, and instead of spitting in his face, she smiled and walked through that door. That should be enough for you to take a hard look at her character, and where your relationship truly stands. Story 16. Even if she did not have sex, she had her own room to rest in when she was tired, and they could have sat in the lobby to chat. She put herself in a possibly dangerous situation and gave you reason to worry about what might have happened. She did not respect you as her partner when she accepted going to the man's room. She should have said, I have a partner back home but would enjoy more conversation here in the lounge, lobby, bar, or restaurant. Story 17. I live in Las Vegas. Even if they did not have sex, they could have hung out at the bar. She would never be happy about you having a woman in your hotel room. Story 18. He absolutely wanted to have sex. Whether they did or not, we do not know. But kind men do not ask women to their room for a drink if they are not trying to get laid. How did you find out? Story 19. Sorry, friend. Your wife was unfaithful. Any adult woman knows what going to a man's room means. Unless that was her brother, they were intimate. Get your affairs in order. It is time to leave. Story 20. You invite someone of the opposite sex for only one reason, to be intimate. She definitely experienced intimacy. Story 21. If a woman accepts an invitation to a man's hotel room, I will assume they had sex regardless of any claims to the contrary. Your ex belongs to the streets. Story 22. Smart. She is your ex. That is a really compromising situation, and a loyal woman would not put herself in it. Story 23. Going to someone's hotel room for a few minutes is normal. Hanging out there in Las Vegas is very suspicious. Sleeping over there is absolutely wrong. There are many places for coworkers to hang out in Las Vegas that are not hotel rooms. They could have gone and hung out in the hotel bar even. If they had gone up to his room to grab his wallet, that is not weird or unusual. But hanging out in a hotel room alone, just the two of them, is definitely wrong. Story 24. Yes, 99% sure they had sex. I would say 100%, but I was not there, and that is the only reason I deducted 1%. Story 25. He invited her up for drinks. If it was about having a drink, they would have gone to a bar. They could have hung out at the lounge instead of his hotel room. Extremely suspicious indeed. No one in their right mind would believe this story. Story 26. I hate to tell you this, but they definitely made cream pies that night. And I am not talking about dessert. Story 27. No, work trips are fine, but I am not inviting anyone into my hotel room during those trips. It is even worse if the person is of the opposite gender. If I did that, I would fully expect my wife to be very upset, and I would feel the same if she did it. You are not being unreasonable at all. Story 28. Even if she is telling the truth, that is an incredibly unwise action. That is the best case scenario and is very unlikely. Story 29. How did you ever get this level of information? Hey babe, how was the trip? Oh, not bad, had a sleepover with someone random. Story 30. If I am in Las Vegas and invite a woman to my room for drinks and she accepts, then we will have sex unless she says no and then she leaves. Story 31. A person who cares about their relationship would never allow themselves to be in a hotel room overnight with another person without their partner there. Simply because even if it is innocent, it is not a good look. The expectation of inviting someone to the room is for sex. She is a grown woman and knew that. She chose to drink with another man in Las Vegas, which she should not have done if she valued your relationship even the smallest amount. She chose to accept the invitation, chose to have sex with him, chose to tell her friend what happened, and by the sounds of it, chose to keep it a secret from you. You found out due to her mistake. Chances are this was not the first time she did this. Work trips and alcohol away from your partner create the ideal circumstances for a serial cheater because of the distance between partners. It is probably the same reason why some women cheat more often on men in the military. If he is not going to be around to find out, they are more likely to cheat. It is not the same for everyone, but ultimately you need to stand your ground. Even if it was innocent, she would never have put herself in that position if she cared about your relationship. The fact is she cared only for the stability you brought and on this occasion cared more about a night of passion than what you had together. She also lied about her intentions in going to the room. Move on from her and take your stability and safety to someone else once you have healed from this. Sorry this happened to you. Also, never forget that when they cheat, you only have two people to be mad at. First, do not be mad at the other man. He likely did not know, or even if he did, it was just sex for him. Second, be mad at her because it was her responsibility to respect and protect your relationship. Third, her friend did not tell you. It is clear she talks to her about such things and probably knows if this ever happened before. But her friend is her friend, not yours. She will not be honest about whether your partner had cheated before and will likely defend her cheating this time, repeating the same story your partner did, claiming it was just drinks. However, the message already made it clear there was more. Story 32. If I invited a stranger of the opposite sex to my room for drinks, it would ultimately end in sex. I would never believe nothing happened as an answer. Do not fall for this statement. Story 33. It is a lie. Of course, if a woman is coming to my room, it is game on for us. We are not children to hang out in the bedroom. Story 34. If a woman is attractive in some way, it is always for sex. I really do not understand how women can expect a man to be so naive. Regardless, it was a dumb move that is going to break trust. Story 35. Well, she is your ex now, so bullet dodged, I would say. Even if there was the slightest chance nothing happened, it was inappropriate. Story 36. I do not think even kind men want a random stranger crashing in their hotel room, but someone they had just been intimate with and then passed out after drinking all night might get breakfast. The fact that the next day she told you she wanted to sleep some more while she was still in his room indicates the level of familiarity they had reached, which was evidently substantial. Story 37. Even if it was innocent, that is a compromising position to be in at first glance. Consider the reverse situation. Would your wife or partner be comfortable with it? There is your answer. Story 38. Even if it was a hangout, sleeping in another man's room is a boundary you do not cross. Story 39. Laughing my ass off, it is so obvious why lie about it. Even if she did not do anything, which is a 5% possibility, going up for drinks and staying until passing out in a random person's room are things you should not be doing while in a relationship because sex is very likely. Story 40. Dude, I know you don't want to accept it, but she cheated on you. At the very least, she did something you wouldn't have done and intentionally hurt you. There is a high chance she cheated. The hardest part is realizing that the person you cared about is not who you thought they were. You don't need people like this in your life. Leave and focus on yourself until life brings someone else along. Story 41. Given the context, the moment she walked through that door of the hotel room, the rest is irrelevant. I would not care one bit about what happened or did not happen in that room. The boundary line had already been crossed. In a committed relationship, you do not spend time in a random person's hotel room for drinks. Story 42. An invitation to a hotel room is an invitation to sex. There is no possibility that it means anything else. Story 43. Let me guess. When you confronted her about this, she told you that you have self-esteem issues and said she can't believe you don't trust her. Story 44. So her going to another man's hotel room is, on its own, profoundly disrespectful to you. To put yourself in a situation where no rational person would believe you did not have sex with someone is the same as having done it. If you believe her story, you feel like the biggest fool on the planet. Because what sensible person who actually cares about their partner, even in the smallest way, would do something like that? It would be a tough call whether or not to continue the relationship because, at a minimum, she does not respect or value you. Story 45. Even if she is telling the truth, it is enough that she spent time in a hotel room with a stranger. It is time to stop calling her your partner. No need to qualify. She is your ex-brother. I am so sorry. Story 46. No, I would say especially in Las Vegas, which surely applies to many things, but come up to my room is universal. Story 47. Curious as to how you found out. If she did not tell you, she was hiding it. The situation is already bad. Her hiding means she definitely cheated on you, and now she is trying to come up with an excuse, however absurd it sounds. If you caught her clearly staying in someone's room and that is the reasoning she gave you, she is gambling that you would believe it no matter how ridiculous it sounds. Sorry, man. Story 48. The expectation is obviously sex. Whether it happened or not is another matter, But no adult is naive enough to be invited to a hotel room by strangers in Las Vegas and not expect that to be a possibility. Even if it is a work trip with colleagues, that is still questionable, let alone with strangers. Story 49. What in the utter confusion? Now, people in committed relationships do not just sleep in someone else's hotel room of the gender they are attracted to, especially not drunk, especially not in Las Vegas. It is possible she really did just pass out in there, but she already crossed too many boundaries. From your reaction, it sounds like you already did not trust her. Good choice in moving on. Story 50. Have I had this situation happen? Surprisingly, yes. Just how a night went. But both of us were single, so it would have been fine if something did happen. However, I would never consider this an appropriate situation to put yourself in when you are in a relationship without explicit permission from your partner. I am very liberal on boundaries, much more so than many people, but drinking alone with a stranger of the opposite sex in their hotel room is certainly beyond the line and should be discussed with your partner first, unless you have a very open relationship. Story 51. Did she not have her own room? It is a bad idea to go back to his room at all, but let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say it was just for drinks. There is still no reason to sleep there. We have to assume they had relations. Story 52. If there were a man on this earth kind enough to invite a woman to his hotel room in Las Vegas only to talk, he would be too kind to even ask that in the first place. Story 53. If that happened while you were still in a relationship, then it is good that you broke up because a girl in a relationship should not be doing things like that. If that happened after you broke up, then she is free to do whatever she wants. Story 54. I read the text she sent her friend. Sorry, my friend. They definitely did it. An invitation back to a hotel room is an invitation for sex. She knew what she was doing. Story 55. As a faithful husband, I cannot imagine a situation where I would invite a woman who was not my wife to my room to be alone with me without any improper intentions. The appearance of the entire situation is unfavorable, regardless of what actually happens. Story 56. It is absolutely possible that they just spent time together. However, it is far less likely that this was the case. If he invited her to his room and she went up with the intention of nothing happening, she was taking a big risk. The expectation would generally be that they were going to have sex. Of course, her going to his hotel room does not mean she owes him sex or is under any obligation to have sex with him. However, the reality is that if a man invites a woman to his hotel room and she goes willingly, he usually believes that sex will happen. Story 57. As a woman, I would never set foot in a strange man's hotel room without expecting him to get handsy. I also will not meet a business contact alone in the hotel bar. I would ask them to meet me at a Starbucks or bring another colleague. Story 58. Wasn't there a televangelist who was popular a few decades ago who did this with a church secretary? And when caught, he initially claimed that they had a prayer session together in his hotel room? Oh yes, that was Jim Bakker, and it led to the downfall of his Praise the Lord ministry. Story 59. I don't know if she did anything or not, but a man rarely asks someone to his room just to hang out unless it is a group of people or he is attracted to the same gender. If it is just her, then 9 out of 10 times he is at least hoping for something. The fact that it was a random man and not a work colleague or friend leaves no comment. If a random man asked me to go to his hotel room, the thoughts that would cross my mind are, is he dangerous? Is he hoping we will have drinks and then it will lead to sex? I would not be naive enough to think, oh, what a sweet random man who has invited me to his room for some platonic company. Unless there is important context we are missing. That is my perspective as a woman. Story 60. Hanging out with a stranger without the expectation of sex sounds unwise. Bringing someone unknown over to get drunk could lead to losing my belongings or, in a worst-case scenario, having her dangerous boyfriend appear and cause harm. Story 61. I found out she stayed overnight in a random man's hotel room in Las Vegas. She claims he was just a nice guy, and they were hanging out in his room. He invited her up for drinks. Las Vegas bars are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no reason to go up to someone's room for drinks unless they wanted privacy. Why they needed privacy is not clear. It is possible they just wanted to do drugs. Story 62. Come on, man. I know you do not want to accept the truth, but come on. She went up to another guy's room. They were not playing Monopoly. They engaged in sexual activity. At the very least. Story 63. I would agree. If you are just talking, do it in the lobby or bar. Once you go to the room, it is playtime. Story 64. I have some rules in life. Not a large number, but I do have some. Cheating on work trips is incredibly common. I know myself well enough to know that I am not 100% sure drunk me would turn someone away. Therefore, I do not hang out with people in a hotel room, and I definitely do not drink with people in a hotel room. The point of this is that, to me, sleeping in a hotel room while drinking with someone is over the line of acceptability in a relationship. It does not matter if they had sex or not. It was a setup for an accidental situation. There is a big difference between an accident and negligence, and this crosses the line into negligence. Story 65. Did she not have a hotel room of her own? It is not impossible that they were just hanging out and having a drink and she fell asleep. It is just highly unlikely. Story 66. I know a girl who did this and still swears, some 15 years later, that it was just innocent hanging out with a man who was giving her money, buying her clothes and swimsuits. They innocently had some drinks and conversation, and then fell asleep. Is it so hard to believe? Story 67. The last time I stopped at a hotel and invited a woman into my room was because the built-in ironing board had a secret wall compartment for the iron, and I was so excited about it I had to show my work colleague. But considering I'm on many spectrums, I wouldn't take my normal as man normal, and my work colleague is well aware that I am odd and devoted to my wife. Story 68. Invited up to a hotel room for drinks instead of the bar. Your now ex, thank God, was intimate with someone else probably more than once. I'm also willing to bet that wasn't the first time. I work mostly with females, and even the ones I trust the most, I'm not inviting up to my room for drinks. Even if nothing happened, I'm married, and I'm not disrespecting my wife by being in that situation and making her wonder. Just know. Story 69. Honestly, even if there is a 0.01% chance that she did nothing, I would leave purely based on the fact that a grown woman in a relationship acted on something like that. Even if it is exactly how she told you and nothing happened, if my partner went to another man's room for drinks on a business trip, I would end it, details aside. Story 70. How did you find out? If it came from her, maybe she told you because she wanted to leave you for a while anyway. It sounds like a made-up reason. Honey, I went to Las Vegas, and you know how Las Vegas is. It would have stayed in Las Vegas if I hadn't told you about it. But I slept in someone's room. Only because I didn't want to drive home from room 507 to room 902. But don't worry, nothing happened. It was great. This is suspicious all around. Story 71. Popping in to use the restroom or consume substances, especially if there are other people present, maybe. Sleeping over is absolutely not allowed. Story 72. At least it was not a boat. Then expectation would have turned into the implication. They did it for sure. Story 73. She is not a teenager anymore. Adults do not have sleepovers in hotel rooms with someone of the different sex, especially when alcohol is involved. I would be very suspicious that you are not getting the whole story. Maybe I am naive, but it would not sit right with me if my wife did this. I would need a minute-by-minute breakdown of what was said and what happened, and I do not know if I would still accept it. She acted in poor judgment in my opinion. Story 74. No one just spends time in a hotel room unless they are visiting family or something similar, and even then, it is usually just while they are getting ready to go to an actual location to spend time. Story 75. No matter the circumstances, he very likely wanted to have sex. She should not go to a man's room alone unless she wants to have sex with him. Friends do not need to be alone in a room to be friends. They can be friends in public places. Both men and women need to realize that going to a hotel room with another person, regardless of gender combinations, leads others to assume that sex is happening. This matters because of the perception of others, such as family, friends, and coworkers. If one does not care about how others perceive their relationship, then this does not matter. However, most people do care about others' perceptions, though not everybody's. Story 76. No, people do not just hang out in strangers' rooms in Las Vegas. She slept with that man and lied to you. Story 77. Honestly, in my mind, even if what she says is true, she crossed a boundary by sleeping at a random guy's hotel room when she was supposed to be committed to you. I wouldn't believe a word she says either, but even if it were true, it wouldn't excuse the poor decision. Sleeping at a random guy's hotel room is something you just don't do when you are in an exclusive relationship. As for your question, I don't think most men, especially those meeting women in Las Vegas, would assume come to my hotel room for drinks means just hanging out. That said, just because he assumed more than that does not necessarily mean she would, if she is really naive. But that would be very unwise of her. Story 78. I'm sorry this happened, but it's better it happened with an ex rather than your partner. There is a technique in lying where you admit to something obvious but leave out the truth. A better lie would have been, I spent the night on a group bus or limousine tour of Las Vegas in the company of others, making up names but including the man as one of them, which covers the fact that she did not sleep in her hotel room. Again, sorry, this was definitely a deal breaker. I'm glad you are no longer together. Story 79. If a girl goes up to a guy's room voluntarily, she is knowingly going up there with the understanding that they may have sex. Story 80. There is no situation in which that is an acceptable thing to do, unless she was in an already established open relationship. Nobody goes to a hotel room with someone who is not their partner just to hang out. Story 81. She was with him all night and did not sleep at all. There is no valid reason for a woman in a relationship to be in another man's hotel room. Story 82. I do not know if you do not believe a word your partner says. It is over. The rest does not matter. Move on. Even if, and probably everyone would disagree, she was not sleeping with him, why bother if you cannot trust your partner? Story 83. Random guy or coworker. The coworker could just be getting overly drunk with people you get along with. A guy you met that night? Story 84. Honestly, I feel like there is a time limit on this sort of thing. If I were single and a woman I was not already dating came to my room to use the phone or bathroom, I would not think anything of it. But if she stayed for more than an hour, I would assume she would be disappointed if I did not make a move on her. So I am confused by stories like this. If she was cheating, why would she admit to spending the night in another man's room? Story 85. A close coworker? Maybe. Sketchy, but maybe. A random person? Come on. 0% chance that a 51-year-old man in Las Vegas invites a 39-year-old woman to his room without the intent to sleep with her. Story 86. She cannot actually expect you to be this naive. The disrespect is almost worse than her being intimate in the first place. Story 87. Is she now an ex over this thing that never happened in Las Vegas? How did you find out she slept with him? I assume someone from his side leaked it somehow. Did she in any way seem flustered when you found out, or did something connect the moment you said something? Story 88. Context is always important. Have you been in a hotel room? It is a bed and a bathroom. It is useful for exactly two things: sleeping and intimacy. Story 89. It's not always about sex. I have been in many private places with women, and nothing happened, just chatting and company. However, she is an ex now, and you need to move on and stop torturing yourself. Story 90. It depends on whether they had giant-sized Jenga there or not. Maybe she just got really tired after a couple of rounds and fell asleep. Story 91. If she had any respect for you, she would never have even thought of being alone with another man drinking alcohol, other than you. If drinking and hanging out was the true intention, they could have done it at a bar. But even then, with a random man, she should not be drinking with him at a bar. If it was a coworker or longtime friend, then yes. In my opinion, end the relationship. Story 92. Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and the shepherds. Either you are the most deluded person to ever walk the earth, or this is just anger baiting and trolling. Your partner had sex with another man and is lying about it. The end. Story 93. Yes, this is a fake post. You are asking if your 39-year-old female girlfriend slept over in the room of a random 50-year-old man she met in Las Vegas, and if anything happened. At least put some effort into your angry bait. Story 94. My brother in Christ, they smashed. Treat her as such, move on and get to the gym. I assume that is why she is your ex now. Story 95. There is no other place to be with her. We could have hung out in any hotel lobby in Las Vegas. If she came up to his room to truly hang out, it was still unwise. That is how you get hurt while you are not expecting it. Drinking in a room is also very unusual to do in Las Vegas. It is Las Vegas. One-on-one in the television is 99% certain. Las Vegas work trips involve a lot of cheating. You were cheated on, and there is no reason to doubt it if the relationship is over. It will cause you gray hairs. Sorry, man. Story 96. When I was single and invited someone to my apartment, I never assumed we were going to have sex. Did I hope that would happen? Yes. But I tried to never assume anything. Story 97. I have never invited a woman to a hotel room without it being for sex. However, I have only done this twice. Once was successful and once I was stood up. Story 98. What are you even questioning here? I stopped talking to a girl I was in the talking stage with where we both shared mutual feelings because she went out with a junior guy to essentially save face. I did not doubt her, but that just did not sit well with me and felt disrespectful enough. Your partner literally entered a room alone with a man. Story 99. I'm a woman and kind of a social space cadet. I could totally see myself coming over to a man's hotel room to hang out, completely not considering the implications. Even with my unawareness, I know what an invitation to sleep over implies. If she admitted that part, they definitely slept together. Story 100. Yes. I'm sorry, but it was as bad as you think. Stop thinking about her and move on. The best way to get over someone is to get under someone. Story 101. It is about trust. I have known people to do this platonically. I have known people who consider any private one-on-one chatting as cheating. You will simply never know. Only you know her well enough to believe her or not. Story 102. A tiny room with a bed and a bathroom. Drinks can be had at the bar. Las Vegas definitely has 24-hour bars. I could invite a woman to my room to just hang out, but we both know what happens after a certain time. I doubt he had a double queen or twin room. Even if it was just sleeping in the same bed, it is still way over the line. Edit. I honestly hate this story because I have been involved with women who tried this nonsense. Do you really think I am that stupid? I am more insulted by the idea that I would believe the lie than by the act itself. Even if nothing happened, they still know it was across the line. This sounds like a rage bait post. Story 103. I do not know what this person was thinking, but if I am inviting anyone to my hotel room when I am out, then I am probably offering to teach them some portable tabletop games and have a drink, all while fully assuming that there is no romantic interest anyway. But socializing over drinks and board games? Absolutely. Story 104. Some sound advice my dad once gave me. Don't allow yourself to be in a motel room with a woman who isn't your mother, sister, or wife because you're going to have sex. It has never failed to be true, even when my intentions were platonic. A barrel racing friend of my wife's rode with me to a rodeo, an 8-hour trip. We left early in the afternoon to arrive the evening before. She hadn't booked a room, thinking she would find an available one. No luck. All were booked. I had a reservation and asked her to bunk with me. I'll keep to myself. You know Esmeralda would kill us both. She agreed. A couple of hours later, she was lying face down. There had never been any attraction between us. To me, she was just Esmeralda's friend. But being in that motel room, Story 105, I was working out of town. There were about 7 workers who had 5 rooms. I had the nicest one. We went out for dinner and beer, and a couple of girls, who later we realized did not have a place to stay on their trip, came home with us. By home, I mean my room because it had the oceanfront view. While sitting around and hanging out, trying to help my coworkers meet people, the girls were on my bed. Both probably would have been happy if my coworkers were not there and it was just us. I mentioned my wife, though I do not wear a ring. One of the girls was upset and said, "What would your wife think if I called her right now and told her there were 2 girls sitting on your bed?" I laughed. She would be upset. She is sleeping right now, and that phone call would wake her up. In short, some people are honest. Edit. This also happened during a difficult time in my life. I definitely could have offered a bed to those two girls for a few nights. Story 106. If you believed her, she would have told her friends about it and made you look like a fool while laughing behind your back. Story 107. A local or non-touristy type hotel room would have a lower expectation, but at a vacation spot or tourist trap, the expectation would definitely be higher. You certainly know your partner better than I do, so you can understand them better than I ever could. However, if I were dating someone who did that to me, they would quickly become my ex as well. Story 108. He was trying, at least. I am perfectly capable of a platonic existence with women and would definitely provide a place to sleep if a woman was tipsy or just wanted to stay up talking. I would keep the conversation focused on the good parts of her life and her marriage. In the morning, she would bring up a conversation about how nobody would understand and that everyone would presume we were intimate, as there is little reason to think otherwise. I am an extreme outlier, though. They went alone to be intimate. Story 109. Why are you making this about universal principles? You have a specific significant other in a specific relationship who did a specific thing. You can say, I don't trust you, I think you're lying. You can say, I wish you hadn't done that. Please don't do that in the future. But there is no universal law about what people can and cannot do. Plenty of people have stayed in someone's hotel room without sex. Plenty of people have stayed in a hotel room for sex then lied about it to their partner. You know way better than any random person on the internet whether your significant other is lying to you. We've never even met her. Story 110. If I spent the night in a random woman's hotel room and knew we did not have sex, I would still assume we had sex without video proof, like in the movie Paranormal Activity. My wife would think the same even if there was video proof. Story 111. Who knows what they were doing, playing Monopoly for all we know. However, she should have approved whatever they did with you beforehand. I would never be alone with another person of the opposite sex without my wife approving it. Story 112. There is only one thing many men usually want. Take a guess. Diddy offers her drinks. Baby, ooh. It does not take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Story 113. I guess there are some men who would invite a woman to his room for drinks with the intention of just hanging out. They must be rare, though. Perhaps it would have been better or more believable if she had said he was homosexual. Story 114. If they knew each other before, it could be platonic. I guess two strangers could share a room platonically as well. However, the optics are clear red flags of cheating. Story 115. She definitely had sexual intercourse with him, and then when they woke up in the morning, she invited him into the shower and gave him the best oral sex of his life. Story 116. I have been invited to hotel rooms during work trips, usually to assist a coworker with processing data. I want to highlight that it can get lonely on work trips. Many sex workers say that men often just want a friend or someone to talk to. There are many times when a person has been invited just to hang out. I spent hours with my coworker. We talked about our different backgrounds. He talked about his son. We gave each other life advice and shared jokes. There are also times when a person has been invited to have sex. I think you should ground yourself. Do not be insecure. Be logical. Story 117. Yes, I would invite a woman to my hotel room with no expectation that she would be there for sexual activity. That is the most common reason it would happen, correct? Story 118. There is no situation where a woman in a committed relationship should go to a man's hotel room unless it is her partner. Story 119. You are obviously a troll. No one would ask such a blatantly obvious question. How do you know his age? Story 120. Forget about expectations. People are in control of what happens in their hotel room. It is about whether or not you trust her. Story 121. I have been to Las Vegas many times in my 20s and always ended up at guys' hotel rooms afterward for drinks, but I never slept with any of them. It is just kind of the culture there, I guess. You go to bars and are in a VIP area with some wealthy men from all over the world, and many times you end up after partying at some penthouse. It honestly depends. Either way, I would never do that if I had a partner because the guys are always looking to hook up if you give them the chance. I also think it is weird that it was just the two of them. That is very suspicious. Even if she did not sleep with him, I would be very upset if that was my partner doing that. Story 122. It's pretty easy to clarify one's intentions if they are not actually the obvious ones. The person could be married, asexual, too intoxicated, or simply did not like the other available conversation spaces. Maybe they were trying to make a move but were just incompetent, or your ex was not willing to see it. There are countless other possibilities. It is not our business. Maybe you are right, but I would not expect to ever know for 100% sure. Even if she just wanted to lie to you, that is her prerogative. Story 123. He likely invited her with the hope that she would have sex with him, but that does not mean that she did. If she told you about it, that makes it seem more likely to me that she did not cheat. Story 124. There is definitely a good possibility they were just hanging out. There is also a very good possibility they were having wild sex. I used to have a lot of female friends in high school that I invited over for drinks and had stay overnight because we did not think drinking and driving home was a wise decision. We never had sex, although they most certainly wanted to. I just was not really interested in them that way. I just wanted to hang out with them, drink, and have conversation. I have not had sex in over 15 years because I am just not interested. I hope you did not break up with her for her just trying to be honest with you. Edit. I am obviously an outlier of the normal dataset. What I do is not typical for most people. Your mileage may vary. Story 125. Not a man, but I think if she told you this and was not confessing to cheating, then it is unlikely that she did. He may not have had motives to be with her. He could have legitimately been just looking for someone to hang out with. That is a risky situation for your wife to get herself into. Perhaps she needs to revisit her relationship with alcohol, especially if she is getting drunk to the point of thinking that this was a good idea, especially on a work trip. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.